All right. So, hey, everybody. Today is day 4 of week 2 of our 7 week challenge. And so, just to recap, what we're up to is we are going to build 7 applications, possibly, most probably, iPhone applications, and probably 1 or 2 web applications over 7 weeks. We have taken it as a challenge. And week 1, we deployed our first application called Cable Snap. And this week, we have been working on an application called LayoverGenie, where it's all about giving you a customized itinerary when you're on a long layover on what you can possibly do with the help of AWS services like Lambda, DynamoDB, API Gateway, and for the AI needs, we use Claude 4 on Bedrock. So on day 1 and 2, we spent time looking at the backend architecture, and at the end of the day, we're exposing an API gateway API that our client is going to consume. In this particular case, the client is going to be a mobile app, and the mobile part, I'm writing it with Swift UI kit, and so if the language is going to be in Swift. And so, if you're not very familiar with this, this is really a place where you probably want to use AI a lot. I use AI a lot in this particular case, except like I told you in the very first video, I understand what the structure of Swift looks like. That takes me quite a ways to be able to take the code and be able to deploy it into an application. And so please go look at last week's video. If the layout is not very clear, I spent quite a bit of time with the cable snap talking about how a Swift UI kit um, directory structure is going to look like. So here the main function is going to be a view controller. All right, so all of these other things, this is like the main function, and from there we are going to call the view controller, and within the view controller we are going to have the main pieces of code. And so today I'm just going to quickly run through that. So yesterday we kind of did a little bit of a twist where we wanted to secure this application this week, meaning we want to try and make it as ironclad as possible. And for that reason, we had Cognito Identity Pools. And from Cognito Identity Pools, we get a Cognito identity for our application. And from our application, we are going to use the AWS SigV4 as an authorizer along with headers, where I'm going to add an X API token that is going to match the Lambda function. Otherwise, the Lambda function is going to reject it. So there's Cognito Identity Pools, and that which makes sure that along with the user agent that I'm going to specify here and along with the X API token, we can 90 to 95% make sure that only our app is able to use that particular API. So we can make sure that other malicious actors cannot use our API to be able to flood our application. In any case, like around API gateway, you could put web application firewall and all those other AWS services as well to be able to prevent DDoS attacks and more advanced attacks. But at a fundamental level, we try to make sure that we make it as ironclad as possible. And so for that reason, we have AWS Core and AWS Cognito Identity. So AWS Core provides all this SigV4 kind of signing, and then to get the credentials which are dynamically generated by Cognito. So please see yesterday's video. Personally, I enjoyed making that video the most because we really delve deep into security concepts there and how credentials are sent from Cognito and things like that. And then Cognito Identity is the one that we use the get identity function to be able to the get an identity ID for our application from the identity pool. All right. And so what we are now going to do is we are going to import this. I have made sure that I have uninstalled the libraries just to quickly give you a 1 minute Swift tour. So in Swift, all the dependencies are managed by what are called as Cocoa pods. Okay, COCOA PODS. And so if you have never used it, it's very similar to pip. Like when we say pip install, here we just say pod install. All right, that's the only difference. And so these are some of the dependencies that AWS provides for the iOS UI kit, Swift UI kit. And so I'm going to use AWS Core and AWS Cognito Identity. So what we are going to do is we are going to put pod AWS Core and then pod AWS Cognito Identity into like a configuration file. And once we have that in the configuration file, we are just going to run pod install. Before that, if you have never done a config file, the first thing you have to do is what's called as pod init. You have to go into your directory and initialize it as a pod, because within that is where you're going to install these dependencies. So once I install these dependencies, now I can use Cognito Identity Pools, and everything else. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but quickly run through the code on the important part. So here are our configuration variables. So this is the Cognito Identity Pool, and then I'm going to specify the region, which actually I'm saying because when we get the credentials, this is going to be one of the arguments in there. And then I'm going to have the API endpoint, and smart layout guide was the name of the Lambda function that, or the API's name, that's what it was, or the microservice behind that. And so I'm going to have that as my API endpoint. Now, in addition, like I said, in every exchange, there has to be a user agent. So my application will always send a user agent called LayoverGenie iOS. Well, I'm going to change it a little bit, but this could be one of the user agents. And the last one is a secret app token. On top of all of this, the Lambda should get a header with XAPI token that has to match what your client is going to send. So in Lambda, I have this as an environment variable, the secret app token. And after this, it's all front end stuff, everyone. So rotating messages, whatever I showed in the demo on the first day, you can take a look at all of that. And here is the main thing where I'm going to initialize a Cognito identity pool, where you can see here that the first thing that I'm going to do is from the identity pool, I'm going to send an identity pool ID. And in yesterday's video, I showed you where you get that from. Okay. And so once I get that particular ID, what I'm then going to do is utilize that ID to get all the different uh, credentials. Okay, so what I mean by that is that's an AWS access key, a secret access key, which are all Cognito managed, which are rotated. So, even if that leaks out, they are all going to be rotated. And Cognito manages that. All right. So that's a little different than AWS configure, if you know what I'm talking about in the CLI. So these are Cognito managed, and you get the region, you get a security token as well. And so all of this go into the authorization part of your final API request. Okay. So I get these credentials from the identity pool and get an identity ID. And from there, I exchange it for all the different tokens. And then I'm going to attach all those different tokens. So all of this make sure that only your application is going to be able to access. In addition, I have the header for the Lambda function as well. And then I do all the UI stuff. Again, look at the first day's video on how all of this works. This is almost like CSS sheets, and this is absolutely everything I got from the AI agent or AI assistant. So what I really focus on, or what I showed you, how do I integrate Cognito? These are things an AI assistant doesn't do a good job on. So you have to kind of take an AI assistant's code and you know massage it to be able to make it work. So finally, once I'm done with this, if you remember, what we are now going to do is, the whole idea was we can write free-form text, and from free-form text, which is going to be one of the post request entries, we are going to say please enter layover details. And then we are going to use this to get all the credentials with the identity pool. And then I'm going to get the Cognito identity with credentials. So what I had on the top was just the function. And specifically, this is what I showed in the demo yesterday as well. I'm going to get an identity ID. And from the identity ID, I'm going to get all the different credentials which are going to be part of the SIGV4 signer or the authorization. Okay, so this has to be a part of the request. All right, so to do that, I do all these exchanges to get the access key, secret access key, the region, and the API endpoint as well, which I define on the top. Okay, which is the API gateway endpoint. In addition, I'm also sending a user agent to make sure that this app is exactly what the origin is, and the XApp token, which is going to be in the behind Lambda function. And after that, pretty much it, everyone. And then I'm going to have a timer with all those messages and everything going on, have a little bit of emojis, everything. And at the end of it, we are going to get the responses back, and once the responses come back, going to do a little bit of cleaning. And you can see here that this is the viator link. At the end of the day, there was a book here, and that was a viator API that I was calling, and that is going to be the link that I'm going to be parsing out and putting it in there, and everything else is going to be whatever outcome came from Bedrock. I'm essentially going to just take that Bedrock output and clean it a little bit and show it. Okay. So with that, that's pretty much it, everyone, with API or the front end Swift program. And so tomorrow, as part of our last video, what we are going to do, or maybe this evening itself, let's take a head start. All right. What I'm going to show is running this on the simulator and showing you the output for it. Okay. And after that, today I'm going to be deploying to the App Store because I think there will be some issues that Apple will come up with. So it will take me a couple of days, or hopefully by Friday or Saturday, this app should be deployed on the App Store. All right. The last thing, again, I wanted to say is I've almost reached a lot of subscribers now, so a lot of people are getting interested in this content, which I'm really happy about. And all the people from my cloud institute have been watching these videos, and we have all been learning together. So I just wanted to again say thank you. And on Friday, I'm going to have a very interesting sort of discussion with a couple of other instructors from the Cloud Institute who have graciously agreed to come into the channel and provide their inputs on AI and Bedrock, on what are some of the latest developments. And these are things that they present, they are experts on it. And so just to hear their opinions, to hear their thoughts, what are all the things that as technical developers should we be focusing on, we'll discuss with them and get an idea on Friday. And so please look at those videos, even if this app challenge is not very exciting to you. We'll be doing these kind of sessions. Next week, I'm going to bring in an ACI graduate just to see what he's up to. And then I'll try to bring in a leader from, when I say ACI, it's the Amazon Cloud Institute, someone from leadership. So we'll have all these different fun activities as we keep going on. Again, thank you all for your time. Hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you tomorrow for the final simulator deployment. And like I said, either today or early tomorrow, I'm going to submit this to the App Store. So by this weekend, we can see a live app of my second week on the App Store. Have a great day, everyone.